It is Monday, November the 8th, and this is the iPhoneography podcast. Hello, everyone. I'm Greg McMillan. This is the episode, I forget what it is, but it don't matter. It's the iPhoneography podcast, and I'm joined by my esteemed co-host, Mr. Dave Podner. Hello, Dave. How are you?
Hey, Greg. Numbers? We don't need no stinking numbers.
Nah, we don't need no numbers.
It's November. It's November 8th. That's the important thing.
Yeah, at least I got that part right. I think I got it wrong one time before, or two times before. Anyway, so we are going to talk about a couple of things today. We're going to start with an experience that you had with the Apple Store. So I'll let you just take it away.
Okay. So it's time for the little story time with Dave Podner, baby. So I'm being a little paranoid. And of course, when you purchase something new and expensive and you're like, well, I thought my photos just didn't seem in my mind to be where they should be. I was wrong, but it's one, especially with a brand new phone.
And you were jumping from a 3 or 4 year old phone going
right.
To
I was jumping from a 10. Yeah, I was jumping from a 10 to a 13 Pro Max. And, it was one of those things where I was being kind of picky. It's one of those things. And I know occasionally Apple does a good or excellent job with their quality assurance. But when you make tens of millions of things, you're going to have a couple lemons. So I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't I was maybe pushing the phone more than I was expecting it, which can happen. Or, I was thinking, okay, is there something physically wrong? It happens. So I made an appointment with my local Apple store, which, by the way, I was able to make an appointment the next day. So I started to look on a Wednesday. They had an appointment Thursday afternoon. I was able to hop right on over. It's only a couple miles away from my house. Went over there. Well done. I made the appointment through the app. Got a reminder
through the Apple Store app?
Through the Apple Store, through support app. Through the support
okay.
app. Right. Through the support app. And it said, okay, well, do you want to add this to your wallet? To your wallet on your iPhone? I said, okay, I'll do that then. So I did that. So it came up when I got near the store. It was crowded, but it wasn't overly crowded. Everyone was masked up properly, and they had masks in case you forgot yours there. And talked to somebody and said, okay, and I brought it up and they scanned it and said, oh, we'll just have you sit back here. First person that comes open, they didn't wait that long, maybe 5 minutes at most. Very, again, real efficient. Got back there. I explained the issue. I said, well, here's a couple photos. And, I just want to make sure that something isn't wrong. It's just maybe me being a little paranoid with a new thing. He said, hey, no problem at all. You're under warranty. There's no charge for anything. So he plugged it into the device, ran a couple diagnostics to make sure there wasn't a hardware issue or some kind of weird software issue. Took maybe 10 minutes total. Very pleasant. Got back and said, nope, it's all good. So he said, here's your options. Because you're under warranty, I'm doing Apple Care by month. Just that we keep our phones long enough that our last couple of phones, we ran out of Apple Care. Once you're 2.5+ years down, and that's when you really need it. Not generally, don't really, most of the time you don't need it in the first month or 2 months. You need it month 25, 30, 36. We just keep our phones that long. So we're doing month by month. He said, you're under warranty. So if you want to come back at any time, as long as there's no physical damage, and they actually he said, let me check we actually have the camera module here. We can pop it out. We can take yours out, put a new one in. I mean, there's nothing wrong, but if it makes you feel better, you can do that. It takes around a half an hour. If anything happens and we accidentally damage your phone, we'll give you a replacement. No charge, no hassle. Mm-hmm. He said, or you can do a full system reinstall, maybe something a little goofy. That it happens. We all know that these are computers. I don't even want to say mini computers. These things are freaking supercomputers pretty much. with the
Oh
amount of
yeah, for sure.
code, with the amount of code and everything else, especially with photography, where they, do all the computational things. That's a lot of code. That's a lot of hardware, software working together, which it's really hard to get it all right. That's why we
Oh
have,
yeah.
14.1.2 type
Yeah.
of releases. They find
Yep.
bugs. You can't find the bugs unless you get a few tens of million people actually working on it. But he said you could, we could replace it. If you wanted to do a whole swap for a phone, you would have to go home, or we have to do it online. And I said, you know what? Since there's nothing physically wrong with it, and I said, well, is there a limit? He said, no, yeah, month by month. So if you're unhappy with something, as long as you're under warranty, as long as you still got Apple Care, as long as it's not damaged, there's no charge, we can replace it at any time. I'm like, wow, that, just that it was so nice, so pleasant. You weren't forced in anything. And this is why I also get Apple Care for things like this, because this isn't a matter of getting something through your cell phone provider where you have to call the provider and then they have to work with whatever repair, and you have to deal with this, you have to deal with that, and who knows what I'm dealing with Apple directly. I'm dealing with someone who knows the device better than anyone else. But, it took me 20 minutes or so just for the whole double checking, getting checked in, looking at the device, trying to think, do I really do this? And then I was done. So it was a nice, it was a great experience, really great experience. And also, I'm thinking as I'm doing this is why there's the quote unquote Apple tax. And for those in audio, I'm using the air quotes here for Apple tax, because I know I'm paying, like for me, $10 a month. For Ruth, I think it's $7 a month for her 13 for Apple Care, which is not cheap, admittedly, not cheap, but it's 100% warranty against anything.
And that goes beyond the normal factory warranty.
Exactly. And
it's like, so you keep that on for the length of time you have the phone then, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So as long as I monthly pay, and it gets paid directly from my app, from just like an App Store subscription.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So it's just like if you subscribe to like Netflix, Disney Plus, something like that through the App Store, or Allied through the App Store, it's paid the same way. So it's not tacked onto my cell phone bill, which I like that, because my cell phone bill's high enough already.
Yeah.
But yeah, so great experience. Like I said, if I do happen to drop this and shatter things, which I've done in the past, unfortunately, I've done it. It's a matter of, I think it's like $60 or something like that to have the front glass repaired if I shatter it or something. There's a certain amount you got to pay for that because it's my fault for dropping it type thing.
Yeah.
But I think I get 2 per year. I think I can do up to before they really, because if
before
you have to
start going, now Dave.
Well, yeah, before they start saying to repair the glass because you're not in warranty, because you're doing blah, 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 it's going to be $500 or some ridiculous, it gets expensive if you don't have Apple Care, if you have to repair the front glass through Apple.
Yeah.
Through Apple, which it seems like you now will have to go through Apple with some of the information coming out, how the Face ID is now connected up to the front glass for some reason with the 13 versus even the 12.
They want to make sure you're using original Apple original parts or whatever.
It's a little, I'm a little about that. There's, it'd be equivalent to a car company saying you can't use a replacement filter unless it's a genuine replacement filter, and your car won't work if you don't get the replacement filter or replacement this or that. It won't work. I'm like, that's a little too much. That's a little too much.
So you decided to just go with,
I decided to go with it.
Anything.
Yep, no change, especially since I have the, if I do notice something major wrong in the future, I can always have it done under warranty.
Yeah.
So there was no reason to rush into it. And also, I hate to put it this way, I could just see getting replaced in just dumb luck. I know they have a machine and do everything. It's like, oh, we have an issue, or oops, this happened, and then oops, this happened, and it's like, okay, it's working. They tested it; it works fine. I don't know. I'm of an age or a personality of, the if it's working, don't break it. Certain things I'm like that. Yeah. Certain things I'm like that. Certain things you want to say, oh, let's improve it. But certain things just like, taking apart phones that's kind of a big deal. And if there's nothing wrong, I don't want to, it's kind of like, I want to have surgery just preventative. I'm like, I'd rather not have surgery for preventative. I don't want things taken apart. If there's nothing wrong, there wasn't anything physically wrong. So, and like I said, just a matter of, it may partially be me looking at online. It's the Instagram issue where you look at some of the photos of like, oh my goodness, they got the Milky Way and they got this. And I'm like, my photos don't look like that. Then I have to remind myself, even though I'm not in the middle of the city, I'm still near-ish, light pollution, suburbs, neighbor lights.
It's the same for me. I'd have to drive for 25 minutes before I get out of that. So, so what was the next step? Like, was there anything further done with Apple on this, or?
Nope. That was the end of it.
Okay.
Yeah. He did note. Now, the nice thing is they did note my account. So if I go back in and I say, you know what, I kind of want, and honestly, there was, I was able to test it out. And if you follow me on Instagram and get past the last photos I did with the metal, just avert your eyes for that. Not for sensitive eyes. But I was able to get some pretty good night, starry sky with some trees showing from my backyard. So I think it was just a matter of, it was still a little cloudy, which if you're trying to get these amazing, beautiful, night sky photos, clouds work 100% against you, not just because you're covering up, but because they're so reflective. They really mess up trying to get that really dark sky versus, completely black sky, which we've had recently, and it's been colder. So being colder, the sky's not as active, so you don't have as much atmospheric issues versus a warm night. There's all this going on.
Yeah, and there's a lot more to it than people realize, doing astrophotography and with a phone at that. I mean, it's a lot tougher than it sounds. And I mean, Shane Moston makes it look so easy, but I mean, he's put a lot of work into trial and error and working with the different phones and then there's the editing. The editing makes a big difference because I know when you first started, you were your edits were, I mean, they were okay, but once you started using Polar and started using some of the tools in that, I mean, your images changed like, no pun intended, but they're like between night and day. And honestly, and that's occasionally I do when I post I don't always do it, but sometimes I post, like, especially on Instagram stories, I'll post, here's the unedited, here's the edited. Yeah. And I like when you do that.
I think it's important.
It really gives you a really good idea of what you had to work with from the beginning with all that light pollution you have.
Yeah.
And by the time you're done, I mean, other than a little bit of glow around the trees, I mean, it's looking like you're out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. And the weird thing is when you look up with the naked eye, you don't see that light pollution.
No, not at all.
No, it looks completely black, and you take the photo and it's like, well, I guess, it's physics. Like you said, if we look, even with the 13, which the massive camera thing there, it's still small. That's tiny. That's very, very tiny shutter. That's very, 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 very small thing. I mean, I know, what was it? Samsung a couple years ago hardwired what the moon looked like for people to take photos of the moon. So it added, and plus, honestly, this is even the 3X, because the 3X zoom is good, but it's not good for light. The light gathering is not that good.
Yeah, because a smaller aperture.
Exactly. So it'd be nice if Apple would have had instead, and I know this isn't basically an S year, it still would be nice to have a periscope zoom where they could get an optical 10 with a very, now, rumors are next year with the next phone, besides the whole, they're going to get rid of the not with the punch hole, and they're going to change from Face ID.
they were saying all that about this year too.
Exactly,
really, so,
exactly.
yeah.
But I can see next year maybe going, because they'll, of course, remember one thing that we all have to remember is they're already working on iPhone 2023 because you have to work that far because your chip manufacturing, your chip design have to start now for 2-3 years down the road.
Yeah.
So they're already working years and years ahead, and people forget that it's you can't really software, you can do major changes, but hardware you have to plan. It's one thing if, and I'm kind of repeating what a lot of people are saying, but it makes sense. If you only expect to sell a couple, even in the low millions, maybe even in the tens of thousands, which is still a lot of phones. That's still a lot. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to say we're going to need this special and this, and we need this and we expect to sell worldwide 500,000 phones. If you're a company like Samsung, where they have 50 different models of phones type thing. It's another thing for Apple to say, we need 50 million of these to work. And we need these to be almost guaranteed that there will not be issues. Because we make so many, a small percentage will mean big numbers. And B, if something happens to Apple, it's going to hit the news.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Much bigger than anyone else. Because
I think just about every iPhone they've brought out probably since the, I want to say maybe the 7 or the 8 series or whatever. There's always been something like, maybe even before that.
The 4.
You got, and even the 4, with the antenna gate. There's always been a gate of some sort. There was Beauty Gate or whatever it was, and all this stuff.
There's tons of Ben gates.
When they went to 6, like when you make that many of something, you're bound to have some kind of a failure rate somewhere.
Oh yeah,
but
when you make volume,
oh yeah,
no one makes the volumes like Apple.
Yeah. I just wanted to touch real quickly on when you said about the telephoto, not, and its light gathering. And then I commented about the smaller aperture. I'm going to put it up in the corner here about David Addison, his latest video on his own channel, not on the network here, but on his own channel. He talks about raw photos and stuff like that, but he also gives a quick little and good explanation about why the 13 Pro telephoto camera has such a small aperture. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to go any more into that. I'll let you I'll steer you over to David's video and check that out, because he kind of explains it pretty good. And I mean, I learned something there. So that was a good thing. But so are you seeing now, maybe it's just a psychological thing, but are you seeing now that your phone is okay? Yeah.
It to me, it sounds kind of weird to equate a phone to health, but it's similar to you go to a doctor after an injury type thing, and you start to feel better because you at least had someone look at it. And honestly, this is similar to, and this was 4 years ago. The last year and a half messes up at least of how long ago things happened. But it was like 4 some years ago. I was running, obviously, and tripped and fell on concrete, and I bruised my ribs when I fell. And it was and it was like a week later, it was like, oh, I still feel it in my ribs. And when I'm breathing, like when I'm trying to breathe in heavy or do something, I can feel, it still hurts. Mm-hmm, and I'm like, did I crack something? Did I break a rib? Did I, it could happen. And I mentioned to the doctor, he said, it's right around a week. It normally takes 2 weeks before a week and a half before you start feeling a little bit better. So you should feel better anyway, but we can get you an x-ray just to make sure you didn't crack anything. And that means it's a rib. You really can't do anything with it anyway.
No, it's like a broken toe. What are you going to do? Right.
Yeah. It's like, And even the broken toe is better, because at least there you can say, wrap it and don't walk on it, versus what am I supposed to do? Not breathe on that side?
Yeah. Or sneeze or cough or anything.
Exactly. But I got an x-ray just to be on the safe side. And they were like, no, you didn't crack anything. You probably just bruised it. It'll get better on its own. And in a couple of days, it started to go away. I was like, I guess I just bruised it and went away. There's nothing you can do about it. So it's like, yeah, just having someone look at it and a little peace of mind, and you know.
Yeah. I guess it's funny how the psyche works.
Mm-hmm.
You think sometimes you think you got a problem with your car or whatever, then you take it to mechanic, goes, oh, that's just normal, and then
Yeah.
okay, everything's fine. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, well, I guess that's a good thing then.
Oh
But
yeah.
I think it was good that they gave it due diligence and
Mm-hmm.
ran a test on it and all that stuff, and everything was fine. And they even offered to replace the camera
Yeah.
module, and but the other good thing is that you got that monthly Apple Care thing, where if anything ever did happen to it, um,
Yeah.
and with you running, like I know you're not back into it yet with your ankle, but once you get back into it, and I don't know, maybe it might not be till spring now, but because it's getting colder, but
Mm-hmm.
when you're if you strap it on your arm while you're running, I mean, that vibration is probably just as bad as a motorcycle. And there's been that issue with the
Oh yeah.
camera, the camera,
The
the stability
vibrations. Yeah.
little things breaking.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, if that ever happens to you, then hey, at least you're
Yeah.
covered.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing.
Or if it did what I did a few years ago, and during the middle of a race, I took the phone out to take a photo, and it slipped out of my hand, and I still had the case on it, but it was just had it in my pocket, took it out, and it slipped out, and it on the
Oh yeah,
on the
yeah.
concrete. And it wasn't broken, luckily, but it could have easily been broken.
Well, I dropped mine today for I think
Mm.
probably the first time.
Mm.
It's got the Apple leather case on it for today.
Okay.
I had it on, and I got out of the car and I had it in my hand, and I don't know what happened, but it just dropped. Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
know what it was. I went to put it in my back pocket, and I missed my pocket, and I let go, and down it went. But
Oh,
luckily, it was fine. Not a mark on it.
that's good. That's good.
Because some scuffs on the case, but that's what it's
That's why
for.
I would say that's why you got the case. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So now you also wanted to, before we go into what
Yeah.
I was going to talk about, you wanted to talk about something like a photo or something that you took?
Yeah. Yeah. So tonight there was a crescent moon with Venus around 10 degrees, maybe 10, 15 degrees. 10 degrees is around, if you put your fist out at arm's length, that's around 10 degrees. So you're looking like, yeah, that much in the sky apart. Venus, very, very bright tonight, clear sky, bare crescent moon. So we're not, it was bright enough that you could actually see the non-lit part of the moon in an outline in
Mm-hmm.
the sky. And it was gorgeous. And I'm like, okay, I have an iPhone 13 Pro Max. I have the big one. I'm going to try, and I've taken pretty good night photos. Let's see if I can get some decent photos at night. And I had it, and on the 1X, because I know that's the best for the light gathering. I'm like, ugh, the moon looks like a giant splotch, because it was just
Oh no.
literally a thin crescent. I was thinking maybe this just because even though as bright as it was enough of a thin crescent. You could just kind of capture the little crescent. And so I'm like, okay. And it was like, ugh. And Venus, very bright. It picked up both. It's like, okay, so I'll try the 3X. I know light gathering isn't as good, but you got the night mode. I held it very steady on the thing. And it was a little blurry, and the moon still looked like a blob. I tried editing on various Lightroom. I tried Polar. I tried doing it in RAW, doing Snapseed in RAW. Just trying different things, throwing everything at the wall. Saying the best I could do was a blob still for the moon, but you could still see a crescent shape of a blob versus a circle blob. But that's the limit. That's true. This is physics. You have something that's this big, and the moon being literally that bright because of the reflectiveness, it blows out everything else. So it's pretty.
Yeah.
It's like, would there be? I'm sure there's. Okay, I saw someone actually post where they actually. I'm not sure what they were using. I don't know if it was even longer or another app similar to that, versus the built-in camera app, and they were able to get a couple of pictures of different planets. So you could actually see like Saturn and Jupiter, or they pointed out that this is Saturn, Jupiter, different points. You couldn't see it, but
yeah.
on a tripod. Now, I don't think because I know you can get attachments to attach something up to like the moon, to a telescope or binoculars. That's the best way to handle it. But just trying on my own, that we hit a limit. Now, in 2-3 years, maybe even next year, who knows? Like I said, I really thought Apple was going to push the astrophotography a little bit more this year, just because it would be the nice ooh moment. But it was cinematic mode for video. That was the ooh, pretty photo, pretty visual moment. So, yeah. But it basically, yeah. I mean, it's still, even with the editing, with the moon blowing out, I was still able to get a couple stars that were in the sky around the moon. So it was still able to handle that, but nothing that I would say is good enough to share.
Oh, yeah.
So,
it was
basically
experimental.
Exactly. It was like, well, like I said, pushing the limit of what we have. So I found out, hey, this is the limit of what we can do.
Well, I've tried to get a picture of the moon before too. And I mean, at best, you can dial down the exposure, like in the Apple camera app, you can, run your finger down on the screen to bring the exposure down, but then you lose literally everything else in the frame.
Yeah.
It just goes black. So, I mean, yeah. I mean,
I tried that too. And
yeah,
but like I said, it's a physics. Even if you had a good, I don't want to say a good camera, but a dedicated camera.
Yeah.
You just can't bust out your camera and take a nighttime image and have it come out.
Oh, no.
So even that, you have to do special techniques. And one of the local photographers, Dave DeSillo in Pittsburgh here, occasionally he'll show kind of behind the scenes when he's getting some of these night shots. And because the moon was going a certain way behind a couple of landmarks, so he got far enough away, and he had a 600 millimeter lens attached to his. Yeah. So we're talking mammoth, with a big old tripod attached there to get the shot just right. And then, even then, he had to go home into Lightroom, Adobe Lightroom, and do a bunch of editing to get it just there. So, and that's that person who, even though photography, he's a professional, it's not his main job, but he still, in my mind, is a professional photographer. But it's still not to where I can just hold my little phone up to the sky and take a picture and get a perfect image of the moon. I'm sure there may be additional apps you could use, but we run like I said, it's physics. Optical physics does have limits.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And when I decided to give up all my Canon gear and just shoot with my phone, back then it was the 6S I think I had, and I knew there was going to be limitations, so I know there's things I can't get pictures of, and I'm okay with that. I don't even worry about it. So, all right, so now we're going to move on to tagging in photos. So in the Artful iPhoneography community, I try to keep up to this stuff. So like I try to have a Throwback Thursday challenge. I try to have a weekly challenge where you have to go out and actually shoot something that matches the challenge. But the latest Throwback Thursday thing is leading lines. And Jules Wagaman put on a post. It was her first post on the community, new member, and a comment was made about tagging photos. Like she'd love to tag hundreds of photos, and wondered if I had any ideas about how to do that. So I actually sat down for a while after I saw this and went through the App Store looking for, an app that might be able to do it, something that could tag a whole bunch of photos. The best thing that I could find, and I'm not even going to mention it because The problem with it was you could tag a bunch of photos, but you'd have to be in the app to see them, and they don't, they don't go to iCloud, um, into your phone. They don't even show up in your camera roll. You can't search your camera roll for the tags because it's just in that app. So I didn't think that was a good solution. So I wasn't even going to mention it. But the only thing I can think of, like the best way to do this, is on a Mac. I don't even know if you can do it in iCloud Photos on a browser, but I think the key words here is you got to have your photos in iCloud. So whether it's the the free 5 GB version, or if you pay for a little bit of iCloud storage. Admittedly, I go crazy with it because I got 2 TB, but I share that with my wife and my son. So they're using some of that space as well. But I just found it so much easier to tag a bunch of photos at once using Photos on the Mac. You can't do it. You can do it on the iPhone, one picture at a time. And to do that on the iPhone, you have to just open the photo. In iOS 15, you can swipe up and you can add. I think it started in iOS 14, but you swipe up and you can add like a comment or a title or whatever they call it, and that is then searchable in Photos. That comes up as a search result. So if you have a picture of a dog, you can just tag it with dog, and when you search for your photos and search for dog, it'll come up as a category or as a caption or a keyword. I'm not sure what it is, but so I've got Photos open here, and I'm going to share my screen and show just the Photos app here. There we go. Now, these are, I love to collect wallpapers for my iPhone. So that's what these are. And you can see that there's a little tag in the corner here. So if I tap on a picture, this one I'm tapping on was back when Mojave come out on the Mac. I found some Mojave iPhone wallpapers, and I thought they were pretty cool. So you can hit the little eye up here on the right, the little circle with the eye in it. It's a very common icon. It's basically get information or whatever, get info on whatever you're looking at. And so you tap on that, and I hope it came into view here. You can see the little window that shows the information on that particular file. So you can add a caption, but below that is keywords. And I've already keyworded this one with wallpaper. That's why there's that little tag in the corner of the file. And if I want to add a tag to it, I just tap in there and I can type in, say, Mojave night, because it's the night version of that wallpaper. So now it shows up there as Mojave night in the tags. So now I can close that window, that little information window, and I can deselect that photo by tapping in an empty space somewhere else in the screen. And then I can go up to the search box in the top right-hand corner, and I can type in, even if I just type in night, it shows some night pictures. There's a category for night. There's captions. There's a picture of a church that I took one time that has taken with Nightcap Pro. And then there's keywords, Mojave night, and that image shows up. So, and then I have other things that I've tagged with the word night in it. So, and then I can close off that search. Now, if you want to do a whole bunch of photos at once, if I go further down my stream here, now I've got some my latest batch that I've found on the internet before the iPhone 13s even came out is the wallpapers from them. And it's like the little neon lights and whatnot that the pros had on them. And then some other ones with some really cool designs for just the 13s. And so if I want to tag these, say iPhone 13 Pro, I can select a bunch of them, say all these ones with the neon lights, and then I can hit the I for the information thing, and then I can see there's no keywords in these at all. So now I can go to add a keyword, and I can go iPhone 13 Pro and hit enter, and then now they're all tagged with that keyword. So I did 1, 2, 3, 4. I did 5 of them there. So if you go to an event, or if you're out shooting basically the same type of thing or the same place, you could even tag it with a place. You can assign it with a location, but you can just tag it with a place like Disney World or whatever. And if you take like 150 photos, you can select all those photos in the Photos app and go ahead and tag them with that same tag. So now I've got those 5 tagged. I'll go into the search bar and I could just type in, even if I type in, 13, no, that's not a good choice. But if I type in Pro, because they're tagged with Pro, I get a lot of other things because Pro is part of a word. But if I go quote, iPhone 13 Pro and another quote, then there they are. And now I've got live photos here that are showing up in the results because that's a live wallpaper and it must be embedded in the file. So I'll click on one and have a look. And sure enough, it's in the title, iPhone 13 Pro Max live wallpaper. But in the ones that I tagged down in the keyword section, you can see iPhone 13 Pro. So if you put a series of words in quotes, it will find those exact words, as much like a search engine works on a browser. So that is about the best way that I could think of to tag a whole bunch of photos, like especially if you want to go through and tag basically hundreds of photos. You can do a search in photos without tagging anything. You can do some searches for, say, car or something like, say, the color blue, and get pretty good results. But Dave, you had something that we were just talking about pre-show here that could very well help this problem too, and maybe even easier.
Yeah. So it depends on why you're trying to, tag per se. But I use for searching Google Photos. Google Photos just seems to do a better job of searching versus the built-in Photos app, including searching for pets. Because you can say, unlike, you don't search for dog, but you can say, oh, I want all photos of like our cat Gracie who passed last year, or I want all photos of Belle. And it does a pretty good job saying, and it does a good job with humans too, but Apple Photos does a pretty good job with humans. Pets are a little harder. But it does a better job with searching, I find, than the built-in. Like if I want to find, barns for whatever reason, I can search in barns in Google Photos and it'll bring up a whole bunch of barns that I took photos of, or sheds or things that look like barns. Apple Photos doesn't work as well.
Yeah. But I mean, admittedly, Google's been working on search for probably the last 30 years or however long
since
it's
the
been,
beginning.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
so
and the nice thing is
nailed down pretty good.
Google Photos is free, like pretty much everything else for Google. You do have a space limit it's starting to hit. So depending on how many photos and videos you have, there are limits, and I'm actually getting close to my limit, to be honest. But honestly, as a backup cloud storage, searching, it's not a bad idea. But you're still having to sign in with the Google account and upload it to their server. So it depends on how you feel about Google privacy, blah, blah, and everything else that goes along with it. Don't want to get into it, but depends on how comfortable you're using Google and Apple. So I have both just as a backup, if something happens. Also, I started with uploading photos that weren't done with my iPhone to Google Photos that were done with older cameras. that I digitized, and so it's kind of because they don't really care about storage space, because I also got the 2 terabyte. I had to beef it up, the 2 terabyte, unfortunately, but for the iCloud, but it gives you a little bit more breathing room where you don't have to be, I don't want this. I don't. So if you could, because if you delete it on your phone, it still stays in the Google Photos.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So I have stuff up there where I don't have it on my phone, but it's still easier for me to search a lot of times because that's Google's strength. Ads and search. Those are their 2 strengths. That's not necessarily Apple's strength yet.
I mean, it all started with search, right? So
exactly.
I mean, they've got that. They've got that nailed down pretty good.
Now, I did see one thing here. Now, if you're looking for a search, now I was kind of seeing, because I signed into my iCloud on my through the browser, on my Windows browser.
Okay.
You cannot add anything in captions or keywords through the browser.
Okay.
For iCloud.
That's good to know.
So I was trying that out, but I did see one suggestion that was similar to what you were saying about uploading it to iCloud, doing it on the Mac, and then letting it. But there was also a suggestion, instead of putting it in keyword, put it in the captions. Yeah. Because in the captions, when you go for photos on the phone, it can search in the captions. So if you put something in the captions, it can be very searchable that way.
Okay.
Now, what I do for events, if I go to an event and take a lot of photos, which I go to events and take a lot of photos, I'll put that on one. I'll make an album just for that. So I'll make this is, and I'll make it, like I'm sure they're going to have the Christmas parade right after Thanksgiving, around Thanksgiving, the local one. So I'll have Oakmont Christmas Parade 2021. So I'll call the folder that, and I'll take the thing and I'll throw them all in there. So it makes it a little bit easier to find photos from that event. And also that makes it easier, because it's all in one folder, to create a memory video off of it. But if you're just looking for general tagging, let's say location or multiple tags, it's not as easy, and it's getting better each time, I think, the searching, but the Apple searching still is not up to what Google has. So I can, like I said, Google searching, I can say downtown Pittsburgh, flags. If something has a flag in it that I took downtown, it'll find it. Apple not so good on that. So that's always another option that way.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I did a search on my iPhone for iPhone 13 Pro, and those 5 pictures came up. So I guess that's how fast it propagated over through iCloud to my phone, which is, I thought was kind of impressive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, a couple of good ways to go about it there. Google Photos is really good for search. I've just been using iCloud because I've got, Mac and iPhones, and, my wife has a MacBook and iPhone and all that stuff. So, I guess it all depends on which system you want to use. I mean, you can use Google Photos with with any computer, obviously, because it's through I guess there's apps too, maybe, but it's through a browser mostly or whatever. But because I've never used it, so I really don't know that much about it. But other than I've heard that it's really good and pretty powerful. So so I mean, I hope that kind of helps out a little bit with the tagging issue. And I mean, it's something that I started to do at one point, and I got like 15,000 pictures on my camera roll, and I don't know how I would ever get caught up tagging them all, but it's just something I rarely think about doing. And I don't know, but I've done that, Dave, where you put an album together with, say a certain event or a location that you've been to. I've certainly done that before, and that helps. But it is certainly it's nice to have, everything tagged so that you can just find them so much easier. But um, well, I guess that's about all I can say for tagging.
Yep.
Maybe peruse the App Store, see if there's something that you like there. But I looked at a bunch of different ones, and I even downloaded and installed a couple that were free. Maybe within app purchases or whatever, but just to try them out. And the biggest complaint I have for those is that you'd almost have to be in the app to find those photos and tag them, but because it doesn't carry on over through iCloud. So I just didn't think that was a good enough resolution to even share what apps they were, because I can tell you right now, I forget what they were.
Yeah.
But well, I guess that's about it. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up real quick?
Nope, not at all. Nope.
All right. Well, tell everybody where they could find you, Dave.
Sure. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and occasionally Reddit, because there's an active iPhone photography group on Reddit as Prof Pod, and on Facebook as Dave Podner Jr. All
right. You can find me on Instagram at Macmillan Photo, on Twitter, Macmillan_photo. And you can find the Artful iPhoneography community group on MeWe at artfulipc.club. And the podcast lives on iPhoneography.ca. And oh gosh, let's see what else. We do the show every 2 weeks. So we also have on the network, we have the David Addison show, and his latest one is where he interviewed Lawrence Bouchard. He was the overall winner of the photographer of the year, I guess, for the Mobiography photo contest. And that was a very good interview. He talks about, some of his street photography. He was actually in the iPhone 7 campaign that Apple contacted him to get involved with. And so it's a pretty interesting story there. So go ahead and give that a listen. And I guess that's about it. Thanks, Dave. Thanks for sharing your story with the Apple Store. And I guess we'll see you on the next one.
Sounds great. Have a great week, everyone.
Good night.